What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the 86th edition of the Tuesday Track Talk featuring your Three Stones pit crew. I'm your Jackman Kel.
I'm your tire changer Cam.
And I'm your gas man, Cam.
We're going to talk a little bit about a race we didn't see. We're going to talk a Cup Series at Nashville. We'll cover a wild week of news. And then we'll kind of forecast into what's for the upcoming week of racing. So that's kind of what's on the docket for today. But before we jump into it, fellas, how we doing?
Well, we're just coming off of the interview with Vince. Um, Great interview. If you haven't listened to it yet, pop back over, listen to that.
Yep.
Great time.
Yeah. Looking at racing through a different lens, literally and metaphorically.
Yep.
So, but
No,
anything
it's a
else?
lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Great conversation. So,
Feel like, we're gonna do what we always do. It's just watch racing, talk about racing, watch racing, talk about racing, and the day ends in Y. That's what we're doing, whether it's on the
Yep.
podcast or in the group chat. So, we're just gonna keep rolling with what we usually do.
absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and talk about, as I mentioned, the race that we didn't get to see. Obviously, we had the Modified World Championships up here in the state of Wisconsin at Mississippi Thunder. I personally couldn't stay awake for this one. They still, when I shut it off, had track prep getting ready for the A main at like 10:58, called 11 o'clock. So I did not stay alive for that one, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I was kind of watching. Had the full screens going again. I had World Outlaws on. I had USAC on. God, what the hell else I have on? I mean, I had a ton of stuff, and I was kind of trickling down to the modifieds and just kind of starting to fall asleep in the recliner. I'm like, God, I'm not going to make it.
No. Yeah, I mean, I watched part of the soup runs a little bit there. And then I got to like that special feature that they had, and then I was out. So I wish that show would have run a little earlier, so we could have gotten to see that one. I know the other part of it is we could have been there, we could have gone.
Yep.
So we shouldn't complain too much. But for those that couldn't get there, that makes for a long night, even if you're at home. So, but ultimately, Drake Troutman ends up winning the $100,000. At the end of the day, we knew he was going to be one of a handful of guys that was going to be someone to beat. But yeah, so that a lot of the mains or the semi features leading up to the mains were really good in terms of the racing product. So, but yeah, so didn't really get a chance to see that one, but definitely worthy of mentioning as that's hefty payday that goes into winning that feature. So, well, let's jump into the one that was later, but we could stay awake for. Let's talk the Cup race at Nashville. So, I'll kick it to you guys to kind of see where you want to get started with this and where we're headed.
Um, if I'm going to give an overall impression real quick, I thought first 3 quarters of the race were pretty good. Kind of dulled off there towards the end, but not a bad track. Concrete doing what concrete does. It puts on some decent racing.
Yeah, and I think we saw it right away at the beginning is those bumps in 3 and 4 that are kind of as they're talking about starting to develop over that tunnel. Uh, had guys on their toes, especially even in practice and qualifying, where you had a lot of guys that were either losing it in practice and kind of figuring out where that threshold is, but also throwing off some qualifying laps as well.
Yep.
So that kind of played into some handling issues that guys had throughout the night in terms of that. But I think, when we look at it, I think the storyline that you have to talk about in an overarching theme is going to be the pit strategy.
Yeah. One of the things that I heard from I want to say it was Pit Talk, Steve Letarte, Todd Gordon, Jeff Burton. They were talking about Blaney and his pit strategy. They were saying that was kind of a Saturday night decision as far as what they did. Something I didn't know actually is the teams have the option to fill the tank up or not. So they could leave the tank empty or whatever they had it at for qualifying.
Yep.
and then start with that, or they could fill it back up. Where what Blaney probably did and Jonathan Hassler, was fill the tank up because they knew they were going to want to run long.
Yep.
And then go from there.
So pit strategy was playing out in qualifying before the race even actually started.
Yep.
And I mean, yeah, you talk about just practice qualifying, got guys, the old 21 machine was cutting grass. The 18 was losing it. And then not only that, guys losing it, but we also had guys that were getting some help losing it. And didn't take long before we got into the cautions, breed cautions, and guy finds himself in the mix of these conversations quite frequently. But the 77 car at Spire Motorsports and Carson Hocevar, and yeah, he gave the 47, sent him for a ride. And if Wilkesboro taught us anything last year, that is one guy that I would not want to spin.
Who wants to give him the nickname here? I see it written down here.
What, Right Hook Ricky?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so but I mean ultimately yeah, we were relatively clean, and then we just went through that stretch there of cautions, breed cautions there. And it was the Bowman and Gregson losing it. And I'm just gonna bring this up quick, and you guys can comment whether or not, but I saw a tweet about it that says it's such a mind game. When obviously Larson showed he's human again, and he was racing back with the squirrels. But as he was charging through, and everybody knows he's got a good piece, and the tweet said something like, Bowman made a mistake because he knew Larson was coming and he had a fast car and he didn't want to get passed by a fast car. And so it basically alluding to, like, you've got a really good car back there, is coming through, is going to pass you, and you're getting a little bit, hey, I got to go now too. Like, this guy's coming, whatever. And basically it would be a brown suit of the week award recipient, is what it was saying. And yeah, I don't know. It was pointing out that instance, and then also at Homestead too, when the same thing happened. Larson was driving through the field and got spun. But yeah, it was just a little rough stretch there in the middle portion of the race there with the old cautions. But yeah, got to figure it out there.
One thing I want to touch on real quick, kind of jumping back to that Hocevar situation. Kudos to the prime guys. I think you're kind of looking specifically more at Dale Jr. and Steve Letarte. And then you had a little bit on the after part on the post race coverage. They that was the first situation that they've been dealt with on the broadcast, I guess you could say.
Yep.
And they said it as it was. Junior's been very vocal as far as he likes Hocevar. He thinks he's a great driver, but he's got his moments and he keeps having these moments. And
Yep.
as LaDroywitz said as well, every one of these times it's been, all right, somebody's just come up and talked to him or even said it on social media or on the radio or something like that, but nobody's really come up and said anything. That happened at Atlanta, where he had the Atlanta guys, pretty much.
Yes, I believe so.
But as I've always said as well, too, you don't really learn until you get your nose popped.
Right. And I think, they kind of alluded to it a little bit too, is what's the one thing that NASCAR taught us is that $75,000 is going to be dealt with on the racetrack instead of outwardly talking. Because obviously Stenhouse could have very easily just flipped his lid and been up and down the 77, but the interview was very well composed in the moment, knowing for him, that's his first DNF of the year.
Yep.
He's made every single lap until that point. And for a team that was literally just above the cut line in terms of going into the event, they were putting themselves in a very good spot points wise to be there at the end of the season to get into the playoffs. So that would have been a very easy moment for him to just lose his marbles in up and down the 77, but he basically just quietly, calmly said, I'll handle this on the racetrack.
And so to that point, like Larry McReynolds, um, one of the guys that I think has a lot of good opinions as well. He hates it when guys take it on the racetrack because you got other guys in the shop that are working on those race cars.
Yep.
So if you're going to take care of your business, you take care of it 1v1, man versus man.
Yep.
But then
And
you
it's
have
also,
others, let's just say, i.e., NASCAR, who doesn't want guys fighting with each other, and they get security involved and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, how do you want us to settle this?
yeah, just tell us how you want us to balance it. Because at the end of the day, the other part of that too becomes, and I think this isn't the same correlation, but look at how many DNFs Blaney's had this year that weren't his fault.
Yep.
Who else gets caught up in the 47 turning the 77 that's going to end their day because you had two guys who are in a pissing match from the week or two before, and now they're also teams are reeling because
Yep.
this is the collateral damage of two guys that are pissed off at each other.
And you know what happens when guys take care of it on the track? They get suspended.
Yep.
So figure something out.
Yeah.
Now, the Athletic or New York Times, however you want to look at it, put it on an article as far as why NASCAR gets so involved with fights. I have not had the opportunity to read it because I am not a New York Times subscriber, so I can't read the article. But I heard there was a liability, whatever thing to go with it.
Yeah.
But
We'll
either way,
see. I just hope at the end of the day it doesn't cost other teams a run at the end of the day for
yep,
that event, right? Like if you're going to settle it, leave it between you two and leave everyone else out of it.
yep,
With that, kind of in that string of cautions, another guy we got to kind of mention, he actually wound up with a decent finish over the day. Christopher Bell, he's probably lucky he didn't have a DNF after that little contact with Eric Jones.
got away with one.
Yeah, he backed that thing into the fence after a little contact going into one. Um, that could have been a day ender, almost kind of spun in a very similar fashion to Stenhouse just down in 1 and 2. So he's probably lucky that didn't.
Probably what might have saved him was probably more up to speed than it
Yeah.
was Stenhouse, where it was kind of a few laps at speed or in the middle of a run.
Yep. So he came back and had a decent finish on the day, actually, to go with that. So the 20 car dodges a bullet there in the middle of that race. Kind of talking about that as well. We had a few guys that got kind of mired deep in traffic. Some guys you wouldn't expect to be a lap down who found themselves back up with a decent finish. And we're talking about guys like Kyle Larson. Bubba Wallace was another one who at one point was a lap down. And he found his way back with a decent finish as well. So there was kind of some interesting storylines that went along with guys who were deep in the field in terms of not what you would expect for cars that traditionally had speed. So
I
very
think,
interesting to see that play out that way.
and to that point, I think you kind of saw the opposite of that as well, where some guys were putting together some decent runs and just never came to it. Brian Priest, he was having a decent run up until he got spun. Um,
Yep.
Michael McDowell, he found himself running the top 10 quietly there for a little
Yep.
while. Um, I know a guy that maybe you guys aren't too fond of, but I certainly am. Shane Van Gisbergen finally putting a top 15 run together, top 20, top 15 run. He fell back a little bit. Um, Briscoe obviously started up front. He had his troubles. Uh, so you had your decent group of comers and goers for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, those guys that struggled, Bubba Wallace finishes sixth, Larson finishes eighth. A notable Eric Jones, a P7.
Yep.
So showed some good speed. Christopher Bell finished 10th. Kyle Busch puts together a complete day. He finishes 12th.
Zane Smith just he continuously quietly just gets more out of the car than what I think others expect him to get.
Yeah, for sure. And that was a P13 for him as well. So you had some guys kind of quietly make up and put together some very solid days. So yeah, and then we kind of got to the end there, and it was just a long green flag run, and we got to see pit strategies play out in terms of fuel loads, and the old burn bar was back in action again. I'm a big fan of the burn bar. I don't know about you guys, but I dig the old fuel mileage from AI on stage one and figured out what guys are doing. So it was all about the time on pit road in terms of what they needed for fuel, and they were kind of keeping track of a lot of guys that were either having to wait on fuel or not.
Yep. And tires. I mean, that was the other thing too. And you saw that on a couple of the yellow flag pit cycles, where guys were taking 2 tires in order to get that track position, and it was holding its own
Yep.
for a little while. That's where Blaney again got his position at. They took 2 tires on that first yellow or green cycle
Yep.
after he got track position that kept him up there, and then he just kind of worked his way up for the front from there. Uh, the other part of that too was that with that long green flag run, it and not being able to dust off the track that it was, the guys kind of migrated towards the bottom of the track.
Yep.
Kind of got stuck there. Hamlin put it pretty good where everybody was migrating. All the dust would start to settle in those second to third lanes, and it just got so slick that you couldn't get up there.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's that for a track like that, like you wouldn't expect those 2 tires to hang on like they did, but I mean, that call is ultimately what gave Blaney just a shot at being there at the end. He took those 2 tires and ultimately he still netted positive,
Yep.
even though he fell a little bit on that longer run, but still was a net positive call for that 12 crew.
Shining moment of the race, I think, was that 3 car battle, Byron, Hamlin, and Blaney, for those 2-3 laps that they were going at it with each other.
Sure.
Yep. Prime could not get enough of that.
Oh, and they had the blimp going, and they had different track cameras going, and I mean that was just money.
Prime has proven again that broadcast is solid.
Yep. And again, like we mentioned it last week, where this was going to be kind of the first traditional race,
Yep.
you could say. They did
Yep.
pretty decent.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, ultimately, long run comes down to it, and Blaney drives his way to finally getting a win this season and locking himself into the playoffs. And you could see the relief from him in victory lane of just he's known he's had speed. There's been issues out of their control that they can't handle, and you could just see that he was relieved to finally put together a whole day without incident. So
Keeps that top 5 or wrecker streak alive.
for sure. So when you run through the finishing order of the leaderboard, you had Blaney winner, Hocevar finished second, Hamlin third, Logano fourth, Byron fifth, Bubba Wallace sixth, Eric Jones seventh, Larson eighth, Reddick ninth, and Bell rounds out your top 10. So ultimately, a vast majority of those big team or what you would expect to be in the top 10 did find their way there. Just some of them took the long way around to get there. So, what's the final race grade for this Nashville race?
Solid 8.
Okay.
Just flat 8.
I was gonna go like 7-3.
Mine was gonna be 7-2. Solid, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I would change though. That's the hard part.
Look at me go heavy this week round.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well,
Yeah, a little bias in there, but
maybe a little bit.
yeah. But no, I mean, decent race. I enjoyed the long green flag run, but I also kind of would like to have seen them stacked up again. But that's kind of where I sit. So, any final thoughts on Nashville?
Good race. Solid
Yeah,
race.
I thought just solid race across the board, and not only that, but I've been really, it's only week 2 and it's something new and fresh, and it's not hard to one up Fox, but enjoying the product Prime is putting together. So um, feels like it gives a little bit of new life, new perspective, um, just freshened up, just gave us a little bit of a boost midway through the season. So enjoying the Prime product and um, different things they're trying to do, and just overall solid race.
Cool. So let's go ahead and jump into the big news of the week. And we've got quite the list, some positive and some not so much. But let's go ahead and jump into these. And who wants to take these first 3 or 4?
I'll just hit them quick. All right, first up here, Rockingham Speedway is for sale after a successful return of the NASCAR. As the owners say, time to pass the baton to someone who can make this bigger than we can. So, anybody out there looking for an investment, Rockingham in the racing world, Rockingham Speedway is for sale. Also, on the negative side of that, well, those are both kind of Debbie Downers, but another one, New River All American Speedway closes its doors effective immediately. They were scheduled to have Smart Mods on August 29th and recently had a Cars Tour event on March 1st. So, um, always sad to see racetracks close, and especially when it's effective immediately. So, um, on a positive note here, jumping right in to opening the racetrack, Matt Tiff was teasing it for a while ago. He bought Mansfield Speedway with plans to host non-racing events as soon as the summer of 2026. And he put out a video today that said he plans to start with a dirt and make it profitable and then consider the switch to asphalt. So will be interesting to see what he does. Guy from the racing world and has unique perspective. So positive news there with the track opening. And then I'll just take this last one here. Fran's family had plans to or was working to fund a cup car through Spire and Hendrick, but backed out when they were met with major backlash. So kind of interesting there that I guess interesting in whatever way you want to think about it.
Well, I mean, we see what's going on with Penske and IndyCar.
Yeah.
Ye-
Yeah, for sure. So that was shut down abruptly, kind of the way it seems when that was met with quite the backlash.
Mhm.
All right, so jumping into the news section here, that this is going to be the DQ section for the week, and boy, oh boy, do we have quite a few of them. Starting with the reference of the Chris Buescher penalty a few weeks ago, the National Appeals Board did lower the penalty, so they moved it down to only 30 points from 60, but the rest of the penalty remains the same in terms of the 5 playoff points, the 2 races for the crew chief, and the $75,000 fine. The crew chief has already served the suspension, so he is clean and free to go in terms of being back at the racetrack. Brad Sweet disqualified after not going to the scales Saturday night with high limit. He crossed the line P3. Kind of an uncharacteristic like mistake for Brad Sweet.
I think typically when that happens, I bet he thinks he finished P4.
That's I would have to say. But very uncharacteristic of the big cat. So
A series going after the owner, though.
they said these are the rules, and here's what we're going to do. So, speaking of another disqualification, Josh Berry ran at Nashville. He was DQ'd for not making weight in the late model. According to the reports, he was 0.01 off of the weight rule. So, the rule's the rule, and they stuck to their guns to that, even to the hundredth of a pound, the way it looks in terms of that. And then on the Xfinity side of things, Daniel Dye, he is DQ'd following the race at Nashville for the rear heights. He finished ninth and scored points throughout the stages of that race. That moves his finish back to 38th. So a good day gone sour for that colleague crew in a hurry. So
One more disqualification or post race failed inspection. The number 14 AJ Foyt racing car from Sunday at the Detroit Grand Prix for IndyCar, driven by Santino Ferrucci, failed post race inspection. He was under the required ballast weight following the event. They will forfeit 25 championship points and driver points. Lost the bonus point for the leading lap, and the team was fined a cool 25K after that one. So,
yikes.
Connor Jones, another guy that kind of can get in the headlines, had another fight in the Cars Tour race at Langley with Parker Etman. Would expect to see something from the Cars Tour officials following that altercation. And again, that is not his first time either.
Right. And those two drivers had to be separated by a fair amount of people. So being there was more than just the drivers involved, that's where we would expect the Cars Tour to step in.
Yep. Some driver news. Corey LaJoie will jump into the 07 Spire truck for 9 races for the remaining Truck Series schedule, starting this weekend in Michigan. Essentially, he'll run 9 of the final 13 races on the schedule for the Spire team. And then finally, some modified news freshly off the World Championships at Mississippi Thunder, and you guys could probably dip into this a little bit more. Stormy Scott partners with Cade Dillard and the Cade Dillard race cars to build Cade Dillard Racing Dirt Modifieds by Stormy Scott, where Stormy will also be doing some racing consultings for certain events.
Yeah, it's been most notably known with him that they were building those Category 5 race cars. Most notably, he was with Jason Durham. Jason Durham is now crew chiefing for Hudson O'Neal on the Lucas Oil Tour. So Stormy Scott, very intelligent with the dirt modifieds, finds a home in terms of working on some chassis and offering some consultations in terms of elevating driver performance, as they say. So cool. Let's go ahead and jump into Wheelman of the Week. We've got a few of them in terms of nominations. And kind of run through them here one at a time. Drake Troutman, $100,000 winner at the Dirt Modified World Championships, winning that A feature on Saturday night. So he's the first one of the bunch. Jumping into the
muted.
Sorry. You got,
Okay.
I had to mute there for the sneeze. Taking this next one here. Bobby Pierce wins two of three Mars races at LaSalle Speedway over the weekend. 15 and 16th win of the year for him.
What was our over under? 40?
Yep.
Yikes. Not Kyle Clark. Keelan Harvick beats the old man and wins the Pro Late Model race for the Cars Tour West race at Kevin Harvick's Kern County Raceway. Had to kind of dodge a wreck there a little bit as the old man got in a little bit of a wreck. I'll take this next one here as well. Kyle Kirkwood dominates the Detroit Grand Prix for IndyCar. He had a hell of a practice run. He was going to be a threat to win. Continues to be him and Alex Palou the only winners for IndyCar so far this year as well.
And last one here,
Yep.
I thought for sure our paid sponsor by Menards would have wanted to take this one. Blaney wins at Nashville with some help of his pit strategy and taking advantage of the narrow lane track late. So,
all right, guys, where are we voting? Go ahead.
I'm taking Troutman. I mean, when you could beat a massive field of cars like that for 100K.
Cam?
My gut was leaning Troutman.
Oh, I was going to vote Troutman anyway. It's got to be our first fairly unanimous decision here in the last couple of weeks, one might say.
Yeah.
I mean, for a check that big, how can you not across multiple nights? I mean, the dude won his prelim night too, so track and change in a hurry, so they were on top of it. So Drake Troutman, Wheelman of the week. So, Cam, you want to jump into some other winners for us?
Damn, you want to do it? You want me to do it?
Jeez. Let me get rocking and rolling here.
Let's see. I got the schedule already.
Test
Oh
those
my
secondary
gosh,
reading skills.
please. Yeah, here we go. All right. Yep, let's get rocking and rolling here. Track special we just talked about at Mississippi Thunder Speedway. Drake Troutman cashes a cool 100,000. With Soda Late models at KRA Speedway. Cole Searing gets the win. On the front Super Dirt Series end up getting rained out. Trucks at Nashville. Solid race there. Rajah Caruth gets his first win of the year. Then jumping down to Wasota Late Models at Fiesta. Shane Zabraski gets a big win there. World Outlaw Sprint Cars at River City Speedways. Buddy Kofoid finds himself in Victory Lane. Then going into some of these other series here, Extreme Outlaw Midgets is Carter Sarf at Coles County Speedway. USAC Amsoil Sprint Cars at Knoxville. Saw Brady Bacon get a win. Touched on Bobby Pierce grabbing 2 wins this weekend. Cars Tour Late Model Stock Car at Langley. Saw Chase Burrow. And then Cars Tour West, we just touched on. Wheelman of the Week contender. Keelan Harvick gets a win. Jumping down to the Xfinity Series there, we touched on Allgaier. Put down a classic beatdown, and then celebrated by getting out of the roof flap. Junior's standing strong in his opinion with that. So the late models went to Madison Speedway. Scott Ward got a win. World Outlaw Sprint Cars at Red River Valley Speedway. Saw Sheldon Haudenschild grab a win. Talked about Mars and Bobby Pierce. Badger Midgets at Angel. Saw Parker Jones. G1 at Circuit de Barcelona. Saw Oscar. We talked about Piastri. Damn it. Just talked about that guy a couple weeks ago. NASCAR saw Kyle Blaine or Ryan Blaney. Jeez. And then NTT, just another Wheelman of the Week contender, Kyle Kirkwood. And then with Soda Late Models at Casino Speedway, saw Scott Ward grab another win. So a lot of different series in action, a lot of different winners, and more racing coming up.
Sweet. Let's go ahead and jump into some previews quick as we kind of wrap up. Cam, you just want to briefly touch on this first one. It's one category, 2 events, but we'll put out a more in-depth preview of this race later in the week.
Yeah, big week here out in Ohio. Dirt super late models. Obviously going out to the Big E. We got Flow Racing Night in America Wednesday night for 20K. Then we got Thursday and Friday split field for 50 lap features and 30,000. And then Saturday we got the big show for 100,000 to win, 26 cars in the Dirt Late Model Dream.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
Looking at some dirt racing, open wheel cars, starting with some sprint cars. Both World Outlaws and High Limit are going to be on their Wisconsin swing here for a little bit. Starting with High Limit on Tuesday, they'll be at 141 up here in Wisconsin, and then they'll be at Red Cedar Speedway over in Menominee. I am hoping to hit both of those races this week. Looking at the World Outlaws, they'll be at Jackson Motorplex on Wednesday in Minnesota.
Yep.
And then they do their 3-day Wisconsin doublehead or triple header, the Badger Triple. They'll be at Plymouth Dirt Track on Friday, June 6th. They'll at Beaver Dam on Saturday, June 7th, and then Angel Park Speedway on Sunday, June 8th.
Hoping to catch that one on Sunday.
Yep. All-Star Circuit Champs. Friday, they're at Williams Grove, and on Saturday on Lincoln Park or Lincoln Speedway. USAC Midgets. They are on their Indiana Midget Week swing. So Tuesday, Circle City. Wednesday, Paragon Speedway. Thursday, Lincoln Speedway. Friday, Bloomington. Saturday, Tri-State. And Sunday, they wrap it up at Kokomo. And then Badger Midgets on Sunday, June 8th. They'll be back at Angel Park with a doubleheader with the World Outlaws.
Sweet. Jumping into the asphalt side of things, Money in the Bank in Berlin, that got moved from Wednesday to Tuesday, forecasting a little rain up there. So they're going to go ahead and run that event on Tuesday, June 3rd. Looking ahead to the weekend, Big 8 late models, Friday, June 6th down at Hawkeye Downs. Arca Menards, they'll be heading to Michigan on Friday, June 6th as well. Alive for 5 super late models at Dells Raceway Park. They are back in action on Saturday, June 7th. They will also be joined by the Mid-American Stock Cars at the Dells as well. So it'll be a good, healthy car count at the Dells. Southern Super Series gets back in action at Montgomery Motor Speedway on Saturday as well. Cars Tour West at Stockton 99 on Saturday the 7th. Craftsman Truck Series runs Saturday the 7th at Michigan. And then the Cup Series heads to Michigan on Sunday, June 8th. So that's kind of a little snippet into what's racing on the asphalt for the weekend. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick glance at the race pick standings. Cam continues to
Pull away.
Widen the gap with the race picks. He did pick the winner in Ryan Blaney. Cam, you finished the second place with Christopher Bell. And then my Allmendinger pick
wasn't off to a hot start to start with.
Yeah, when he had to drive the stop and go on the first lap, I knew I was in trouble. So as the race pick standings go, status quo, and the lead is nearly to 200 points already. So
big eggs.
All right. Let's try to fix that. Let's make some picks for Michigan, and then we'll make a surprise additional pick for the week. I'm going to go ahead and take William Byron. I have the first pick.
Damn it. That was going to be my pick.
I got to quit thinking and just start picking.
Yeah. Damn it. That was a good one. I should have had a backup pick ready to go. Dang it.
Sorry, pal.
All right. I got to take the low-hanging fruit. Give me Larson.
Oh, boy.
And give me the 11 team. Give me Denny Hamlin.
All right.
Cool. So there's our Cup Series picks. We're going to go ahead and each driver. Oh, boy. The order of this is unfortunate. We're going to go ahead and pick a driver for the Dirt Late Model Dream. Yep, only 26 cars get into that feature, but there is a ton of previous winners of the event that I feel we can be very confident that they'll make the show. So Cam gets the first pick, which we know who he's going to take, so just go ahead and announce it.
Give me the old Fast 49, Jonathan Davenport.
Well, I'm good. I'm going to take the next low-hanging fruit on that one. Give me Bobby Pierce.
Okay. And then I will go ahead and take Brandon Shepard in Rocket 1.
Hey.
So, well, that wraps up the 86th edition already of the Tuesday Track Talk. Again, as we always say every week, be sure to get to your local short tracks or your local racetrack, wherever that may be. Support them. Make sure that they are alive and well, so that we can continue to have racing. So if you haven't seen already, schedules are posted on socials. So if you're looking for racing, that includes series, tracks, where you can stream, where you can see them, where they're headed. That schedule is out on the social medias. We will have our Dirt Late Model Dream preview put out here shortly. So we're going to work on that and have that ready for you in terms of previewing that big event for the weekend. But other than that, until then, we'll see you next week for another edition of the Tuesday Track Talk.